Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us either now live or visiting our YouTube channel for the Learn More series. My name is Natasha. I am the program director for No More Under. We also have Shazak, the founder of No More Under, and then we have Isabel, who's joining us from Seattle Children's Hospital. And we're really excited this month to be honoring and acknowledging both Water Safety Awareness Month, because May, we're leading into summer, Water Safety Awareness Month, and also Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. So there's actually a lot of really powerful acknowledgements this month. It's also Mental Health Awareness Month, which is not a conversation that we'll be having here today, but May has a lot of things that it's acknowledging. So I just wanted to mention that definitely May is very powerful, and I encourage everyone to have conversations about all of the observances this month because they are really powerful. But so excited to be here today, like I mentioned, to talk about AAPI and water safety. So thank you, Isabel, for joining us. We'd love to have a little bit of information about you and your experiences within your role, and just feel free to introduce yourself.
Thank you. Great to see everyone here today. Thank you for watching and engaging. I'm Isabell Sakamoto, Seattle Children's. I work in suicide and injury prevention at the hospital. I've been doing this for a few years now. Part of that gets to focus around water safety and drowning prevention and all of the incredible work that people before me have started, including Tizzy Bennett and Dr. Linda Kwan. And so trying to carry some of that forward as best I can, and just appreciate the opportunity to be here.
I'm curious, of the juggle, just, you do have a lot going on as far as injury prevention and all of those things. How and when does water safety fit into there?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And it's a lot to juggle, because it's a lot of focus on different areas of suicide and injury prevention, right? And so I don't know, it feels like there probably isn't ever a time when I'm not thinking about water safety, only because the prevalence, the relevance of it and the impacts of, we're surrounded by water every day, whether I'm admiring it and that's a reminder, or it's a recreational activity I like to engage in myself. And, there's also just one of the leading causes of death in children and teens in our nation, and especially locally. And just thinking about, in general, and thinking about this work and in support of families and children and parents and caregivers to get educated on all these different issues, it's just can't really ignore it, right? And so it's always on my mind, but I also wish I did more often. But
well, you're balancing a lot, and we know that, and the amazing work that you and the whole team are putting in. I'm curious, so before I got into this realm with water safety and the conversations around it, injury, one thinks of injury as I was skateboarding and I shattered my ankle, or I was skiing and I've done something terrible to my knee. However, just because you were mentioning the word injury, but then also the water safety, I'm curious if you could chat a little bit about negative things that can happen in the water can be classified as an injury if it doesn't lead to, as you said, it is one of the leading causes of death. So I'd be interested if you could maybe chat a little bit about any of those definitions, or the fact that water-based injuries, because that's what it's called, but I wouldn't have known that previously, is what that is, and that's part of what children's deals with.
Right. Yeah, that is an important distinction. And I feel like one of the challenges around terminology and all of that, right, and trying to understand that. And I think maybe more simply, is a lot of times when we're looking at the information, it's referred to as fatal and non-fatal drownings. And I was just reading some information today, and it was saying, right, for every one person who dies from drowning, a fatal drowning, of course, there are another 8 people who end up in emergency departments to receive care from a non-fatal drowning. Granted, they don't, in that case, they're by definition, they don't die by drowning, but they may have some really long-term or lifelong impacts that negatively affect their health and how, they function daily. And so there's that, along with the trauma that they live with and everyone who is part of that experience also lives with. So yeah, there's definitely a distinction between the two, but I don't think that's something that we hear about as often as far as, the ones who make it but are also impacted for the rest of their lives. So
that's right. And I was just recently at the National Water Safety Conference, and it sounds like they're talk about all the terminology. We're trying potentially to move away even from calling it non-fatal drowning, because technically they still drown, right?
Mm-hmm.
They survived, but they still drowned. And, we talk about the mishmash of statistics here of not really knowing how many people have had those close calls. So there are close calls often that you don't go to the emergency room, but right? It is still a close call. And so it's just so interesting how to get people and get the word out as far as how often those close calls happen, those survivors that have drowned happen, and then obviously the deaths that we hear about more often than not. And I am just curious, like with children's, what have you found that's been really helpful to get the word out? Like what efforts are you all doing, whether it's year round or I know leading up to the summer? Just talk about what's been effective and impactful for you all.
Yeah, appreciate that. And the point that you're mentioning to emphasize, right? Because it really is a year round. It's a year round effort. And like you said, especially right now, as the weather starts to warm up, it's something that we're thinking about even more. But as far as Seattle Children's and the work that they're doing around this, part of that is, I guess, everything that has been done right, that's been done and done well has only happened, in partnership with community, with other organizations like No Surrender who are doing this work and having conversations with other people around it and collaborating with them. And so nothing we do happens alone. So like part of that is, we get to be part of the Washington State Drowning Prevention Network, which is an incredible group of people and members, right, from across the state who all want to learn about how to keep people safe around the water and how to recreate safely to prevent injuries and deaths. And so there's part of that. There's a lot of information and education on our website, like community education that we offer through presentations and consults and things like that too, for parents and caregivers primarily on our website. And just being in community spaces like this to have conversations around the topic is really important and powerful too. Just elevate each other and the message, because ultimately at the end of the day, right, we're all working towards the same thing. But we have different perspectives and things to bring to the table in this space. And it's important to hear all of those because you never really know what's going to resonate with someone. And if nothing else, you're planting a seed. So I think that's really important. And I think one of the things I get most excited about as well is when we get to physically be out in community, right? Like engaging with families, engaging with other partners in this work. We do life jacket fittings and distribute them to families across the state of Washington, thanks to the Panda Cares grant that we have and the support that we have to make that happen. And so, yeah, I know a lot of people are doing a lot of really great work, and I'm grateful that Seattle Children's supports it.
Love that. I would love to shift for 2 seconds if we can. Again, we have so much that we're kind of talking about and touching upon. And I think, I'm not sure if we get into this with your childhood necessarily or, folks who have come before you in the Asian American community in water safety. So I guess I'll just offer it up to you, maybe how you came up swimming or if you were in the water and what your experience has been just as an Asian American in and around water.
Yeah, I was born in Seattle. And so, I've admired and loved the water for a really long time. And I also lived near the Gulf Coast when we moved for a while. And so was surrounded by a lot of ocean and lakes there as well. And so for as long as I can remember, I've really been mesmerized by the water. I loved it. It's funny, I was thinking back to it, maybe even having a conversation with you before, Shazak, around what that looked like. And I was like, did I take swimming lessons? Did anyone actually spend time in the water with me? Did I hear about, any precautions to take and ways to be prepared? And no shame to anybody, but also I I can't recall a single conversation or interaction like that, right? Like I didn't have formal swimming lessons. I remember the first time like being in a pool and my dad just kind of standing on the outside watching, but also trying to kind of like verbally tell me what he knew about how to like stay afloat or to swim. But like that was it. It was like 5 minutes of conversation and you're kind of like figuring it out, which was really interesting to think back in hindsight, being in this work now and all of the incredible information that is out there and available. But, you know, it's like my mom also immigrated to the United States when she was in her 20s. And so like didn't have, I just things like that weren't on her radar necessarily, I don't think. And so she also loved to swim, but like my friends and I would go to the river and the ocean and the lake. And, you know, there wasn't necessarily someone always there supervising us or engaging with us in those spaces. And I think that's why I try to put so much emphasis, or I appreciate the conversations that happen around this now, especially like between each other. Parents or caregivers engage with their kids and talk about this. There were times when I've always considered myself to be a strong swimmer, but I feel like that's my self-perception. I have no idea if I really know what I'm doing when I think about it, right? And there have been times growing up when I got in really sticky situations and I didn't know what to do, right? And fortunately, made it, but there were some close calls there where if I had just had a conversation around what happens when you get stuck in a rip current or the tides change and how do you get out of that situation, could have saved a lot of, you know, energy. And
that's super powerful. And it's actually interesting you even mentioned the rips and things like that, because we actually just posted a beach safety post today, and it's all just important conversations, isn't it? And I think that that's part of just trying to create the space in the community, in the diverse community, all of our Seattle and greater communities, just about the different pieces. It's not just pools, or it's not just a river, or it's not just an ocean, it's every type of water, and just trying to encourage parents. I know that Seattle Children, some of the clinics now have elements on the walls about the education to try and make that communication part of either the doctor's visit or at least part of the parents' awareness to go home and chat about it. And it's really great because I believe we've heard from children's that it's in various languages. So, it's making it accessible to everyone and bringing in that conversation that it wasn't that if a parent doesn't chat about that, it's not that they don't value it or they don't care. It's that they haven't maybe had the opportunity to know or learn or have someone teach them the importance of that. And so it is great that, you've seen a shift, that there is more conversations now. And that's a big part of what this is. And it's just bringing it into the forefront. I'm curious if beyond conversations, have you seen any initiatives or been a part of anything that you've found really powerful in engaging specifically with the Asian American or Pacific Islander communities around water safety? Or is there anything that we all can be doing better to support this communication going for everyone?
That's a really good question. I mean, we've had some engagement with, a variety of different cultural communities and things like that. And I think what seems to be of like the utmost importance across the board, right, is like, I guess I focus a lot on like conversations and storytelling and the power of that, right? Because that is where it starts, but also tapping into that curiosity as far as, what with these different, it's hard for me. I guess I'm not thinking of any one particular experience, but across the board, it's like, I just think it's so interesting. Like I've learned so much just through hearing people's stories and like the power of storytelling beyond conversation and sharing those experiences. Not only is it like bringing awareness about the importance of water safety and the things that you can do to prevent drowning, you just learn how much variability and there is in experience and walks of life as far as like people's relationship with the engagement or relationship with the water, how they've engaged with it, what their beliefs are, right? And like how you approach a conversation trying to share information about water safety. Well, if you don't know what somebody's relationship has been with that element leading up to it, then, it's just, that's the way to have an engaging conversation, really come into that space with like a lot of curiosity and understanding, I feel like is just powerful. And I don't know that I answered your question very well, but for some reason that's what came to my mind.
Oh, that's great. And for me, you speaking about that, it just makes me understand how much representation matters. Even we recently did a swim program and we had just a very diverse group of teachers in the water, and those children being able to see themselves and parents being able, to see people and understand that they understand, some of the history, and or where you've come from or language, that is a barrier. So we look at all of the barriers. And I think seeing someone that looks like you and or understands you, whether they're talking about a drowning story or a swimming story or why this is important, it is helpful, So I do just think that it's important that we keep this whole thing diverse. And also understanding, even socioeconomics, that plays a part in it as well. And so, I don't know, I think the more conversations we have, my biggest frustration maybe is the echo chamber sometimes and really wanting to get it out there. Yeah, I think that's a thing. And I do want to just ask if you've had, any influences, other Asian Americans within water safety that you've looked up to or that have been an influence for you in your career.
Yeah, thank you for that. I mean, it's actually funny in reflecting upon that one specific question. In this space, particular around water safety and drowning prevention, I'm like, oh gosh, I feel like it's telling that I haven't had as much influence in that space by people represented in this community, I guess I should say. I think what did come to mind for me was I had a community health professor during my undergrad who was Asian American and really helped mentor me to be a health educator and supported me in my journey to Seattle Children's, which I'm really grateful for. So that's, I think, the importance of, we know the influence that parents and caregivers have on youth and their children, regardless of even if it's something that they notice in hindsight or years later that come to fruition. But there's something about those mentors and those role models who exist in this space to support and impact the younger generations and each other, right? But to this day, almost every day I think about those people who have supported me in that space and how much I looked up to them. And kids, role models, seeing their other adults and people in their lives as role models is huge too. So I think that's just something worth keeping in mind.
Well, in 10 years, when we ask someone else, they'll say, Isabell Sakamoto was an influence. Yeah. So as we go into these summer months, Memorial Day weekend, maybe I shouldn't say that because it messes up our, YouTube, but as we step into the summer months, I'm just curious, do you have 3 go-to tips, or do you kind of list all the layers, or how do you approach a short period of time and sharing tips and safety with families?
Yeah, thank you. I do appreciate that. And you mentioned the layers of safety, right? Because there's so many things that we can do in the space to prevent drownings. And I think what I would share is right now in particular, or really honestly year round in our state of Washington, especially, think twice before getting in open waters because they're super cold. We know this time of year, especially spring and summer, but even so, it continues to be, it's so hot. It can get so hot outside, right? But not only is the water cold, but depending on how the weather is, it can influence how the water is behaving, right? And so there's just so much unpredictability around that. So think twice, don't swim alone. if you're going with children, make sure your eyes are on them at all time. I have to say, wear a life jacket that fits, a U.S. Coast Guard approved life jacket that fits, because I would be absolutely remiss if I didn't. But that's one of the best ways that you can prepare, right? Is having that with you and wearing it so that you aren't responding in the moment. And just in general, thinking about like, okay, where, even if you're not intending to be around water, just kind of thinking about where you're recreating and who you're doing that with. And if there's water around, how will you be prepared to respond? Even if you're a bystander, right, in a situation, or call 911 and all these things like that. Importance of learning CPR and what to do in an emergency is important. But I guess just thinking in advance, especially as people make travel plans, you're out of your regular routine on vacation, things like that, right? And there's so much to think about.
I feel like that's why Florida has one of the highest drowning rates, right? Because so many people travel there and it's just different terrain.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then so life jackets obviously are, we all preach life jackets, and have it on next to you doesn't help. Like, strap it on, buckle it on. But is there any resources that you know of for families if they need a life jacket? Putting it on means we need one. So do you have any? Yeah,
actually. So if you're in Washington, right, there is Big Five, the Big Five coupon we have. I can also pop it in the chat, or we can send it afterwards too, but that just became available. So anyone can get life jackets for 25% off at any Big Five sporting goods store.
nice.
And there are resources I'm happy to share as well around like what to look for, and how to get that fit as well on our website. But yeah, definitely use that Big Five life jacket coupon, and then keep an eye out for like loaner stations as well. And so across the state, there's a whole map of them that we can point people in the direction of too.
That's awesome. I'll make sure that we put all of these links in the YouTube video chat, so those will be available. It's so cool that discounted life jacket is available for anyone. So that is really awesome. And the life jacket loaner station maps, awesome, because it shows you, if you don't own one, it shows you where you can go, and they're free, right? That's the beauty of life jacket loaner stations. And no more under, we're doing some work with some in Bellevue, which we're really excited to be in the next stages with our architects. And those are amazing resources, because if you get to open water space that does have a station and you don't have your life jacket, at least those are there. You don't want to rely on them. We try to encourage that being a backup, but certainly a great thing. And yeah, so I would love to share all of those links just so that we can make them as accessible as possible. But yeah, definitely great to know about that coupon, and the fact that so anyone can qualify. Is that correct? They can just go on and
yeah, that's right. The coupon itself, there's like 4 on one handout, so for you or for one person, for an entire family potentially. But really, I'm sorry, I think I misspoke. It's 20% off, but it's a good discount, and I will put that in the chat here too for everyone to see.
Yeah, I really appreciate that it provides life jackets for the whole family, because I think that's something as a parent and as an adult, it's really good for us to basically model life jacket use. I know sometimes it's challenging because of suntan lines, or, you are and can be a good swimmer, but I just heard so many stories of someone going in for someone else and drowning, or, it's just, you never know. And the water is so unpredictable. So it is one of those things that such a simple thing to do that really, truly does save lives. So
yeah, exactly. And like you said, it's not the one and only, right? It's not like it takes away from any of the other things, but it's definitely an important element that we know works.
That's right. Isabel, thank you so much for just coming on. And I just want to thank you, honestly, for all you do and being so open to always like working together and partnerships and bouncing ideas and running your section of the Drowning Prevention Network. You do so very much in our community. I feel like I'm getting emotional saying it for some reason, but like, I truly appreciate you. And I know you had really big shoes to fill, with Tizzy moving along, but you've really done an incredible job. And it's an honor to know you and work with you and for you to be here speaking with us. So thank you sincerely.
Thank you. Oh my gosh. I appreciate you all, and truly, like, I love this work because I get to work with you. So
Yay.
yeah.
No, that's amazing. Thank you for the tips too, and the resources, and just helping us continue to contribute to these conversations, and giving us ways to, remind ourselves that it's important to try and engage with these conversations with first understanding where the other person is coming from. And like you said, whether it's a cultural thing or a personal experience or anything, trying to understand that is super important to move forward with these conversations. So we appreciate you sharing your personal experiences too, because we know that, we invited you on here with the benefit of your amazing experiences at Seattle Children's, but we appreciate you being open about your experiences personally too, because it's those personal experiences, like you said, that will continue to help people realize how scarily common this can be, but the fact that we can prevent it and continue to put those layers of safety in place. So
thank you so much. And thanks for hosting these and providing the forum. And thank you to everyone who tuned in.
Drowning is a silent epidemic. It happens quickly and quietly and way too often. It is the number one reason children 1 to 4 die, and the number 2 reason teenagers 14 to 19 die. No More Under is a 501c3 organization fighting to change these statistics. We believe that education, awareness, and access to swimming skills will save lives. No More Under has partnered with local and national agencies to change the perception about what it takes to be safe around water. Being a water watcher, wearing life jackets, and learning CPR are just a few ways we can all make a difference. Through the generous support of donations and volunteers, we have been able to provide life jackets, water watcher badges, and soon swim lessons to those who need it most. Join in our mission to keep our families and loved ones safe from this preventable tragedy. Help us stop drowning now at No More Under.